Y a des drapeaux, des bannières, tant s'il y en a, des manières étendards le long des frontières. Mais qu'est-ce qu'ils représentent? Des confiances en moi, on comprendra jamais pourquoi. Ce podcast vexilo fait pour toi, pour les flags, faut content. Flag, faut content. Quoi de neuf Vexheads et bienvenue dans l'épisode 28 de Flagged for Content. C'est le seul podcast en franglais cette semaine. But the franglais is going to stop there. It is also a Flags for Good podcast, which I mention every week because one, I love that company, and two, they are a huge part of making this show happen. So, if you're in need of flags, patches, you name it, head over to flagsforgood.com. We are also starting to host our episodes there. So some nice, whatever they call that. Synergy? Yeah, something like that. Anyway, this is a really long episode. I am not going to waste any more of your time here than to just cover the basics. One of the basics, as always, is our Instagram winner. And this week that was at LT_Schroer. That is LT_SCHROER. He, at the time of recording, was the only one to get the United Tribes flag of New Zealand as the fresh flag. So anyway, thanks for playing, everyone. Thanks for winning. I don't know what to say. All right. So yeah, I did want to say to definitely check out the show notes. There are lots of photos, so you don't need to understand French to get the most out of them, but there are also documents and a booklet in French, again, with a lot of photos. You can probably get the gist of it, even if you don't speak French. In addition to that, to the usual Google Drive show notes, there are a couple links in the episode description, actually more than a couple. There's a few down there. So expand that regardless of your platform and go check those out as well. Nasha also wanted me to link to a YouTube video by friend of the show, Terith from Flags and 50. So that's going to be among those links that's at the bottom. And, I just wanted to get these words out there. So there's at least one time this episode that I pronounce these things correctly. So, de la croix, etymology, etymological, vexillology, vexillology. Okay, and with that, just a preview. Next week's episode, we have Brian Stokel. He is the Fog and Gold Flag of San Francisco guy. I'm not going to waste any more time. It's a great episode. I had a lot of fun with him. I recorded it just a few hours ago. So enjoy that next week and enjoy this one this week. Let's go ahead and get into it. Folks, it's amazing guests all the way down. We've got another one this week. You know him from Twitter at Vexillology with an IE, where he organizes Vexi Cup tournaments. You know him from getting an official apology from the EU to Switzerland. More on that in a bit. And you know him as the Deputy Secretary General of the SFV. It's Nasha Gagnebin! Nasha, what's up?
I'm good, thank you. And you? What about you?
I'm doing well, man. It's it's a kind of a warm morning here in Tennessee, but I'm making do. I'm inside, so there's that.
You're lucky. Spring is there already.
Yeah, I've heard you had quite a... Of course, it's a little later in the day there, but I've heard you've had quite a day.
Yeah, well, it was okay today. It was like sunny, but it's kind of getting a bit warmer and warmer, and it's very nice when you're in Paris and spring is around the corner. It's a nice... I kind of like this time of the year.
Yeah, it's hard to complain about Paris in the spring, I find.
Yeah, when you don't have demos and it's fine.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have some French friends that they'll still find a way to complain about it, but hey, whatever.
It's the French way to do it. Complain.
I'm a pro at it. Part of the reason I have a podcast. You complain about enough things to enough people, they're like, hey, start talking about this on the air. People would listen. But anyway, so yeah, Nasha, you are in Paris right now. You've been working on some election stuff or something, from what I understand.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I've been doing a few things in Paris. Yeah, I'm living in Paris right now. I've got a lot of things to do. I'm mainly like a film director, so I'm trying to to go back to, because I was working at Parliament for 10 years as a legal
Hmm.
advisor for MPs, like members of parliaments, and a caucus, like a party caucus. And then my boss was from Northern America, like the rest of France, still in Northern America,
Yeah,
next
yeah.
to Canada and Saint-Pierre-et-Miquelon.
Hmm.
And it was like awesome experience, but now I'm trying to go back to movies, making movies, and I've got a lot of time to think about my movies, but also to think about my flags. Yep,
Yeah,
that's
right
quite good.
on. We'll talk mostly about the flags, but I am interested in the movies too. You did not include that in the notes of things to talk about today. So maybe if we get there, or hey, maybe off air, or listener, join the Discord. Nasha's in there. Just saying.
Yep.
All right, cool. So yeah, we've got to kind of move into it because we have a lot on the flagpole today. So tie those knots down and don't go anywhere. First, we've got our usual over and underrated flags. We are going to chat about the SFV, which I am not even going to try to pronounce out because I can't say the Vex word in English, and Nasha's role in it. We will discuss Nash has an upcoming booklet. The English title would be Why Give Your City a Flag, which is very interesting. I've read through that. We have a ton of flag designs and proposals, things like that to go over. We've got these Vexy Cup tournaments I mentioned up top. We've got some lighthearted clowning on some various organizations and folks that should know better. And as usual, well, we're going to try and finish things off with a quiz. We will kind of determine whether we have time for that. So anyway, before we get into all of that, Nosh, I like to ask my guests, what is your favorite flag?
My favorite flag. My favorite flag is a flag from a small town in western Switzerland. It's
Okay.
from Ruti in canton of Saint-Gall, and I just love it because it's a blue field with a deer, a yellow deer, jumping over the cliff from two white rocks, and with some stars, I think, if I remember well. And the blue field changes a bit, like sometimes it's like very light blue, sometimes almost turquoise, and I just like it because it's a flag that is very close to nature.
Hmm.
It's a flag that is talking about mountains, and I was born in India, but I've been adopted by Swiss parents, so
Mm-hmm.
I lived all my young years. I came to Paris when I was 25 years old to make a films, like to study films in a film school. But then before I was like living in Switzerland, and the mountain has some kind of important, influence on how I see things and how I do things. You've got a lot of people who have like sometimes the sea because they're islanders or something like that. And the mountains I've been living with the mountains. I had a huge mountain just behind my house. It was not the Alps, it was the Jura, so the northern mountain range in Switzerland, which is shared with France.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, yeah, the colors. I like the colors. I think it's very a nice image because it's showing natures and of course it's a coat of arms. I've listened to the prior podcast about the CVS and how you've been speaking with your guests about coat of arms and flags. And in Switzerland, it's pretty much every
Yeah.
single municipalities has coat of arms and flags that are actually almost the same as the coat of arms.
Right, right. And if I'm not mistaken, like even kind of the name for Switzerland, and I don't know if the design on the flag as well, but there's a canton of Schweiz, isn't there? In
Yeah,
part of the
yeah,
German
should.
speaking part?
Yeah,
Schwitz?
yeah,
Okay. That
should.
has like a similar, I
Yeah,
guess, like
it's a
design
Swiss.
coat of arms.
Yeah, exactly. It's a red field with a tiny Swiss cross,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
it's actually a bigger, Swiss cross. It was a Christian cross at the time, but
Right, right.
now we say
Yeah.
it's a Swiss cross. But they all used to have those little Swiss cross, like the Christ,
Hmm.
just to show as a valley sign on their flags. And but Schwyz is the only one who kept it, and Schwyz gave probably the name of Schweiz, which is Switzerland in Germany. So in German,
Right.
so yeah, that's probably where it comes from.
Yeah, etymological. Man, I'm also a linguistics major and I can't say that word. So basically, everything that I get good at, I can't say the operative word for, it turns out. But yeah, no, it is fascinating how Switzerland comes from Schwitz or however they pronounce it in German. But anyway, so the one that's this town that's got the deer jumping over the cliffs, how do we spell that? I would love to look that up.
It's Ruthi. It would be Ruthi.
Ruthi. Okay, cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
that'll help the listeners out too, because I know a lot of people like to follow along with
yeah,
the
no
show as
problem.
well. Yeah, that's awesome. And you and I are similar in that, like, yeah, I mean, you grew up with mountains all around you, the Jura in your case. I grew up here in Tennessee having the Appalachians basically in the backyard. So I'm definitely more of a mountains guy than a beach guy or anything else like that. Not just in here, but also like on my designs. I like that a lot. So very cool. Let's get into, because we've got a ton to talk about today. I was super excited to get you on the show. You had messaged me on Twitter as a fan, and I was like, likewise. I love being fans of people that are fans of the show and vice versa. You get it. And you just sent me basically a book of things that we could talk about. Which, first off, for future guests, follow this man's lead. It is great to have the whole CV there. No, for real. And but the first thing, like I guess the overarching thing I wanted to talk about was your role in the SFV. From what I understand, you have designed their current logo, which is pretty cool for a group that designs things. For you to be the one that designs their logo, can you kind of like tell us a little bit about how you got the opportunity to do that and how you got started in SFV?
Yep, we had like I didn't know actually in Switzerland they had a Swiss Vexillology Association. I was in love of Swiss flags. I was in love of flags. I've never looked up on the internet for a Swiss Vexillological Association. So when I arrived in France, I once checked on internet and they were doing some kind of they were asking people to contribute to send their flags design for the new regions because in France we had new regions that
Right.
actually
When was
were
that?
it was I don't remember. I think it was 2013 or 2014. It was under Hollande
That seems right. Okay. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah presidency. And so for example Auvergne and Rhône-Alpes has been merged into Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes, and Midi-Pyrénées and I don't remember, Languedoc-Roussillon have been merged together into Occitania.
Mm-hmm.
So a few regions stayed, like Brittany. A few regions were actually merged and they really didn't like it. Like Alsace has been merged with Lorraine and has been merged with Champagne-Ardenne.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a very nice flag and it's very liked. And we'll talk maybe later because I'm like trying to keep a track and record of flags that have been used in front of town halls in
Mm.
France for municipal flags in France. And it's quite interesting. If you go to Brittany, you will have a lot of Brittany flag, a
Yeah.
lot of Brittany flag everywhere. The other region where they have a lot of flags, and it's mainly the Alsatian flags, either south or west. Yeah, that's Brittany, and in Alsace, it's quite interesting because they really love it, and we actually can understand because they speak French, but you have a minority that speak Alsatian,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very close to Swiss German and to what they call higher German, but which is
Yeah.
called higher German because on the map it's higher, but it's kind of a Swiss
Right.
German,
Right.
Alemannic,
Yep.
and the regions it's very interesting. The regions close to Switzerland, Germany, Belgium, and Luxembourg, where those countries have a lot of traditional vexillology way of understanding, this science.
Mm-hmm.
you have in France kind of a stick addition to this, because a lot of people in Alsace, for example, they like the flags, and you will find a lot of flags in Alsace. You can go in central France and you will not find any flags, not even the French flag. So it's quite interesting, because the French flag, when it's used on a town hall, it's normal. When it's used in private, it's badly considered. It's like people think that you would vote far right, or but like
for Le Pen.
for Le Pen,
and
that's quite also interesting, because at SFV, our main it's not our main goal, but we it's part of our task to bring back the French flag in common area for everybody, and not only for far rights. We completely apolitical. We have a lot of people who have different opinions about politics.
Sure.
The people who are rather conservative, because in flags in France, usually it's not usually. I wouldn't say it's usually, but you will find a lot of patriots and people rather leaning to the right, or maybe a bit over the right, close to far right. And you don't have a lot of people from the left, but you still have a few people from the left. And our main goal it's not our main goal. Our main goal in SFV is to spread the word about vexillology, to talk and discuss and to meet between people who love flags together, but also trying to get into universities, trying to get into institutions to make us known. Especially, we'll be talking about it with why giving your municipality a flag. That's been what I've been doing with SFV, and also bringing back into the center of the village, how we say in French, the French flag for everybody, not only far right, not only the right, but for everyone.
Yeah, that's a really noble goal, as well as I don't know if you've listened to the episode that I had with Tara Stark, who did the Keystone flag, and we talked about some pride flags as well. But one of her main interests is, she talks a lot about this too, is kind of the same thing you're talking about with the French flag, but with the American flag. Because we have similar issues here, where it's like, if you see, like, maybe one American flag is like, okay, that's just a family maybe living their life. Don't maybe read too much into it. But if you start to see like a little bit, quote unquote, too many American flags, like there's a bumper sticker, there's a garden flag and a big flag, you get it. It starts to send up some red flags, if you will. And yeah, Tara's, like, one of her main goals too is to make the American flag for everyone again. So I love that you guys are doing that exact same thing in France, because France has a beautiful flag with a ton of like rich history that should not be just co-opted by the far right. Same with the American flag, should not get to be co-opted just by one side. So yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you guys are kind of leading that effort, it sounds like.
And what's really interesting, I always do in comparison with Switzerland, because I've been growing up there. It's a country where you have a lot of flags. The vexillological tradition in Switzerland is massive. It's huge. You've got flags for everything. Societies, associations, institutions, every single one has its flags. Even the family have their own flags. And so it's very interesting, because when I arrived in Paris 17 years ago.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Longer ago than you'd like to think, probably.
Yeah. That doesn't make me young. It was interesting, because I was involved in a political party, and I met a guy who was, Paris is, this big city where a lot of people from all over the territory and all over the country come and gather and live
all
for a
roads
while.
lead to Paris.
Yeah. So the guy was from Alsace, actually, and he was in my political party, and he started to speak and say, "Wow, I've been to Switzerland. It's racist. They've got Swiss flag everywhere." And I laughed, and I was like, it's actually weird, because in Switzerland, for political parties, logos of political parties, only the far right has a Swiss flag, and the far left has the Swiss flag on its logo. The far left, the Communist Party, which is the Labour Party of Switzerland, they have a Frisian hat, with a red Frisian hat with a small, tiny Swiss cross on it.
Oh,
The
cool.
Social Democrats, the Socialists, the Liberals, the Green Liberals, the Center, all those parties, they don't have reference to the Swiss flag. Only far left and only far right. And it's really interesting because it really shows, like, when you go, I come from a small city which is called Biel. It's a bilingual city in Switzerland.
Hmm.
That's where I made my studies, and we've got a nice lake. And when you go there and you take a train, or you go with your car and you drive, you see, I don't know, I wouldn't lie, I don't know, I've never counted, but I think out of 15 kilometers, you would find pretty much a Swiss flag, a cantonal flag, a Bernese flag, or a municipal flag every single 200 meters. It's and it's definitely, and when you look at elections, it's definitely not far right. They're voting Greens Liberal, they're voting
Right.
Progressive. So the flag in Switzerland is really used as a way of graphic design, as a way of looking at something which is nice to look at. Whereas in France, it has a political meaning and political connotation, which is way much stronger. And it's always interesting because when my French friends go to Switzerland, they're always shocked about the Swiss flags everywhere. And I'm always saying, yeah, it's just to be nice and to be beautiful to look at. It doesn't mean anything else. It's not political. It's not
Yeah.
patriotism. It's not far right. It's just a way of making your city more beautiful.
Yeah. That's fair enough. I do wonder how, like, do you know in France, like, how it got co-opted by the far right? Because I know, like, and I know there's probably not just one answer for this. It's like probably a long story, but I know, like, early days of the French flag, you see it in all these like Delacroix paintings and everything else. Liberty guiding the people, everything. It's like very much seems like a, maybe not even a leftist symbol, but definitely revolutionary and like big tent, like uniting symbol. Like in that Delacroix painting, like he's got, like the different classes are represented by the different folks, and then there's liberty with the flag. So I just wonder what the process was that kind of led to that. And to be fair, if you were to ask me what led to that in the U.S., I don't think I could give you a accurate or succinct answer anyway. But it is interesting to think about and kind of like go back to what time period that must have happened in. I would think.
Yeah, I don't really know. I know that the first one on the left, kind of to what I recall in my memories and what I've been living, it was Ségolène Royal. Ségolène Royal was a candidate, a woman who was candidate
For
in
the PS,
2000 and yes, in
yeah,
2007
I
for
remember her.
Social Democrat Party, Socialist Party. And she declared once that she wanted to bring back the French flag for everybody. And she was somebody, I mean, politically, she's been like from the left. A lot of people accuse her of being, rather leaning towards the right and so on, and
Yeah.
taking a left conservative woman.
Mhm.
And when we had Macron who arrived, the French flag was used. The French flag with the European flag was used everywhere in every meetings. I think they had the feeling they decided to bring back, to take over far right on the French flag, and you could see French flags in Macron's meeting 2017 everywhere, and they were happy with it and they were proud of it. And it was kind of in 2017, people were thinking he was still from the center left,
Right.
So today we kind of think he's on the right, but
Mhm.
at the time, a lot of people were thinking he was still from the center left, liberal center left. So it was really interesting how they've been doing it. But then you still don't see a lot of French flags in the gardens. It's
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah,
You
I
see
know.
it, it's quite interesting. You see it close to the Swiss border in Jura region, on the French region of Jura,
Mhm.
and you see it, and they vote far right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they work in Switzerland, which is quite funny because they vote far right against immigrants who come and take the jobs, but they go and take the jobs in Switzerland, which is not taking a job. They're just having a job in Switzerland, which is fine with me.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, yeah.
As somebody who lived in Metz in Lorraine, that's it, a lot of people will make the same complaints and then go drive off to work in Luxembourg for the day. And it's like, all right, I see you. I get it. It's not a, I see what it really is. We don't have to get into all that. But I know we have, we had somewhat of an order we were going to go into, but I say, let's skip ahead a little bit. We can go back to a few of those things because you mentioned a few of the kind of like protocol things with Macron coming in 2017. And I had this in my notes, but I wanted you to clarify because I'm not sure exactly what you meant. But as far as like I guess, was it more just that he used it more and brought it more to the forefront? Or I think he made some changes to it too, right?
Yeah, he made some changes a few months ago. It was in the news everywhere, but we made a comment. We communicated on this. The SFV made a huge communiqué de presse, and that was really interesting because we've been actually saying that, it's the second line of I think the second article of the French Constitution that says the national emblem of France is the tricolor flag.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fine. And that's the only way to describe a flag.
That's the only wording? Flag? It just says that?
Yeah. And we have no colors, no Pantone, nothing. Nothing is in the law.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird because what's the tricolor? Netherlands is a tricolor. Ireland is a tricolor.
Romania.
Romania. So, of course, when you're in France and you hear the tricolor, it's a blue, white, red. But then you don't even know if it's a tricolor in a vertical way or if it's a tricolor in horizontal way. You don't know. It's not specified. It's not written. And what they use is, I think it was maybe François Mitterrand in the early 80s. He was president for 14 years. And he started to use this French flag with a center white band that was actually smaller, because when you would have it behind him, then with the framing of the image, the blue, the white, and the red would be equivalent. The same. Right. And the problem is, this flag is used by everybody, and it's not the French flag. And we have pictures of former Prime Minister Edouard Philippe, who is having a meeting with a Belgian Prime Minister, and you have a European flag in the middle. You have the normal Belgian flag on the left, and you have the fake French flag on the right.
The TV version, yeah.
The TV version. And this version is used solely with no public, with a frame, and to be organized. And I don't even understand why they're doing that. Me coming from the movie industry and audiovisual stuff, I don't even understand. You would go everywhere. You go in Italy, you go in Ireland, you go everywhere in Romania. They don't have this middle band, which is like smaller. And they're just like, yeah, but it's nicer to look at on TV, and everybody's like, I'm like, okay, maybe it's nicer, but it's not the French flag.
Yeah.
And when Macron arrived in 2017, he was elected, and we have this ritual where all the press and media are inside Élysée, the inner court of Élysée, and they're waiting for the Secretary General of Élysée to come out and to say, he's nominated Prime Minister, this man, Minister of Ecology, this man. And the guy comes out, and I look at that, and I see the flag, and I'm like, no way, they have the wrong flag in front of the Elysee. Like, it's what are we doing? Like, the president is going to do a speech in front of a flag which is not even the flag of the country. And so I'm like, I had a few friends who were working with me in parliament, and I just call him and I say like, oh no, that's not possible. I mean, okay, they can do whatever they want. They can do the flags. They can, in protocol, they can put the flag on the side they want to, but they normally have to respect a way to put the French flag with the European flag. And in France, nobody cares, but they have to. And then the following months, I think 3 months, 3 weeks later, we had elections. So we have a new government, and of course, most of the time it's the same people, but you make like very
Sure.
small
Yeah.
adjustments,
Mm.
and you make a huge adjustment with the flag. It changed the flag, and it was the normal flag. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, because my friend said, okay, no, I completely understand what you're saying. I call a guy I know at Elysee, and I tell him that the flag is not the French flag. And he's been doing it. So the French flag has been changed in Elysee. Macron changed the color, like he took it a darker blue, but as
Noticed
nothing is
that.
codified in the law,
Yeah.
we can have a you can have a very light blue and a very dark blue. Actually, tricolor,
Yeah.
blue, white, red. You don't even know, you know,
Even for
and
yeah. Sorry, go on.
yeah, it was just interesting. And the prime minister, the social democrats do every single speech in front of the wrong flag. They have one flag. They will have one flag, and in each convention, each interview, each speech where they declare themselves candidates for, it's not the right flag, and
Right.
the prime minister has the wrong flag, and yeah, it's kind of it's for me it's completely not understandable why a guy who would be paid to take care of that is not taking care of that. He had one job basically, and he's not
Yeah, I
even
was
doing
just
it.
gonna say, you had one job and you couldn't do that right. That is wild, though. It's funny too because I had heard about the smaller white stripe in the middle and all that, being TV ready and all that. I had not really thought about, although it makes complete sense, what you said about Italy, Ireland, Chad, Romania, all these other tricolors. They don't do that. They just let it. This is the actual flag. It's going to be the one behind us, not some made up thing. And it strikes me too as like, and I would guess that at least some of my listeners, this may strike them in the same way, but it seems very French to my American ears and my American like thoughts on it or whatever. Now, having lived in France, that's I have a little different perspective maybe, but it seems like this classical focus, which I don't normally disagree with or hate, on aesthetics. And you want the flag to be as aesthetically pretty, kind of wrapped in that way that it always is behind somebody, as it is flying, as it is on a decal stick or whatever. I don't know. There's this. I don't know. That seems very classically French to me, and I won't lie. I'm not French, obviously. No, don't have citizenship, anything like that. But I don't really hate it that much. I do agree with you that it's very weird and very bizarre and not proper, or not. I guess maybe to the extent that it is codified or whatever. This is a little bit outside of the norm. But I don't know. I'm not gonna lie. I don't hate it. I also kind of like, and I don't know, you didn't really say one way or the other your thoughts on it, but I like the darker blue and red on the newer, quote unquote, newer French flag. I like that color scheme better. I don't know why. I couldn't tell
Yeah,
you exactly, but
it's closer to what we had before,
yeah.
and it's I mean, a lot of flags already. They didn't change a lot of flags because a lot of flags already have those kind of colors.
Yeah, and you're not
It's
going to buy all new. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Even in National Assembly, where I was working in Parliament, the lower chamber, we had flags, and sometimes the red is kind of close to pink almost, and the blue is very European Union, like
Yes.
European flag blue. And we've got sometimes in some other places on the same institutions, maybe 50 meters away, the flag with darker color, and it's quite interesting. Actually, it's yeah, we should codify everything. I think it's important to codify everything because it doesn't make and people were completely shocked that he changed something without telling anybody.
Yeah.
and
But I mean, I guess he's totally
and
within his rights to do that.
yeah, and he could do it anyway because you have no law, so
Yeah,
actually he
given the
didn't
way
change
it's.
anything.
Yeah.
In
That is
reality, he didn't do anything.
that is wild because, like, I mean, from having done this for as long as I have, almost a year now, and just been studying flags for much longer than that, but like, it's very interesting. Even when flags are poorly codified into law, they're not usually this poorly codified. I feel like even in a lot of situations, it maybe doesn't exactly say the Pantone colors, but it will like say something about the design, like the red should be on the hoist, the blue should be on the flag, not in the French case, but like, this should be here, whatever. That one seems like the most open-ended that I've ever heard of. And having lived in France for, I guess, grand total of like 2 years, and been in love with flags in general and the French flag for a long time as well. I never knew that. I never knew that it was that loosely codified that it just says it's the tricolor.
Yeah, the tricolor.
Yeah.
So you don't even, and it's even worse with the coat of arms. we don't have coat of arms. We have a coat of arms on our passports, which was some kind of coat of arms they had to give in the 40s in the United Nations in New York, and they had some kind of coat of arms they organized. And Macron again changed a few things, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, he changed!" But yeah, of course he can change because nothing is codified. And those coat of arms, you go in France and you see all kind of coat of arms in front of town halls. Sometimes it's like the normal one. Sometimes it's like italic one. Sometimes it's even like horizontal one. Sometimes they have RF inside, like for République Française. Sometimes you've got like, I don't know, it's you've got everything. Nothing is codified. So
yeah,
you can see every kind of French coat of arms, which is weird, but especially when you come from Switzerland, where everything is, we
everything
even have the Pantone, red Pantone for the Swiss flag. So
right, yeah. No, I did read a little bit up on that before we started recording, but yeah, everything in Switzerland. I mean, even like the flag it's a perfect square. Everything is like nice, neat, and tidy. The Swiss flag almost seems like another thing that like confirms stereotypes or whatever. Just like the Swiss being all, I don't know, very organized and very like clockwork, I guess is the good way to put it. But yeah, I guess I did have questions on that. So I did want to go back a little bit, and I asked this, but I think it got kind of lost in the fray. But I am very curious how it felt to you, or you maybe not felt to you. That's a bad way to put it, but how you were blessed with the opportunity to create the logo for the SFV. Like in a group of people that does graphic design, you were the one they trusted to do the logo. Like, how'd you swing that?
Yeah, it was like we had a change in the bureau, like in the chair, and so we went from a black and white brochure to a flag bulletin in color, and we decided to modernize a bit the image because I thought it was like also interesting to have like flags are about colors. Flags is design. Flag are graphic designer.
Yeah.
So I think it was interesting to have. Of course, we have a flag for Société Française de Vexillologie, and I've got a personal flag as a deputy secretary general, and the president has his flag, the webmaster has his flag, the president of honor has his flag, the general secretary has his flag also. We have also badges. If we have, because a lot of people actually have boats, so they have like those little badges they can put on boat when they go there. We have flags to use at sea. We have a lot of things for the SFV.
So,
but the logo was in black and white. The logo was never seen in color. So we decided to take our flag to transform it in a logo. And so, yeah, I've made a few. Of course, the president and the secretary general, they were giving inputs and so on.
Yeah,
but I drew it, and I think we kind of modernized a bit the image of the Société Française de Vexillologie.
I really like it. I've seen the flag and the logo now at this point. Yeah, I think it's interesting too because, like you said, you listened to last week's episode with Christoph, and he was talking a lot about creating flags out of COAs and mostly things like that. And so it seems like in this case, you guys kind of went not quite the opposite, but almost. You took the flag and then made it into not necessarily a COA, but a logo. So yeah, goes both ways.
Yeah. And we added the tagline, "The passion of flags," because we wanted to that people could understand exactly what we were talking about. Because vexillology is, each time we meet people on a institutional way, that it's funny because we know we can predict what's going to happen. They shake our hands,
Yeah,
they look at us, and they're like, "Okay, that's you are the vexillology." I learned a new word, and
sounds like
that's
me.
exactly everybody say that.
Yeah. I was going to say, so for the listeners, actually, maybe even a little bit more for the viewers, Nasha had a really funny idea up top before we recorded this, where if he slips into any Frenchisms or any faux ami, anything like that, I was going to raise a flag. Be like, up, flagged. The funny thing is, I think I have needed to flag myself more times this episode than I have you, because I can't say etymology, vexillological. Like, I should have been flagging myself this whole time, but listeners can do that in their minds. I'm sure they probably get onto me in their own minds about mispronouncing stuff all the time anyway. But
In the last podcast, you said that you wouldn't pronounce vexillology in French because you didn't know how to pronounce it in English. But what's funny, it's exactly the same word. So we kind of
just a little different, just different accent on it.
And we had like this in I think it was in the 60s when they founded the FIAV. They were looking for a word because French is not an official language of FIAV, but FIAV is an abbreviation. It's an abbreviation in French, and we've been like looking and finding some information that it almost wasn't called vexillology. It could have been called bannieristique, which was a bannière, which is a banner, and it would have been a bannerology, something like that. But finally, it's been a vexillology thanks to Vexillum. So
banneristics or something. Yeah. French always has to be different. I remember like from just a little aside, but from like learning French in like high school and stuff, I remember our teacher telling us that, like when hot dogs went over there for the first time and the French government wanted to call them like chien chaud, and it's like, no. Like,
yeah, it's difficult.
The government can say whatever, but we're going to call it le hot dog. Like,
yeah. We have like a few. It's sometimes we look at Quebecers and we laugh because they have way much more words that change into French than us.
Yes,
but it's political. They're
right.
kind of protecting the language. So when you're in minority, you always try to protect your language. When you're in majority, you don't really need to protect. You want to protect it in front against probably American, because it was not against English. I think it was rather against the American influence in the 80s and beginning of the 90s, because what you're talking about is Loi Toubon, who actually asks, it's a bill that asks, basically on a commercial message, you need to have a French translation if it's written in English. So sometimes you would see an ad for a beer, I don't know, and it's written cheese up, and then you have a small asterisk, and then you see very small santé or something like that.
Man, I forgot about that until you just brought it up, because we were over in France just over a year ago, and my girlfriend doesn't speak French. She knows some German, and when we were going through France, I love all the ads next to bus stops and like the everything like that, where it says like, it's very cool, and then it'll have an asterisk that says c'est très cool or something, and it's funny because cool is the same, and I don't know. Yeah, I do love their approach to it, and the fact that a certain amount of songs on the radio every hour have to be in French, not just in English. These other things like that are, to ostensibly protect culture, language, things like that, but they end up, and maybe they do, but they also end up having some funny results sometimes, I'd say. All right, cool. So yeah, SFV, and the only other question I had, and you can give me the brief version of this, but how did you work your way up to Secretary General? Like, was that like you mentioned how long I can't remember, how long have you been in SFV?
I think I started in 2013.
Okay. So you've had a
It's been 10 years.
10 years. Yeah,
Yeah,
you've had
10
a
years.
pretty quick rise up to Secretary General then I would imagine.
Yeah, I've been there for 2 years or 3 years with a former president, and I was just a member. And then, but I bought some. I was younger than today. I had a lot
Sure.
of ideas. I was probably one of the youngest at the time.
Mm.
Because it's kind, we were still having, yeah, I tell you, like the stuff in black and white,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we've been modernized a lot of things. It was good. It was really interesting, but I think it was also good to go, and then I decided to. I had my account, I think, before using the one from SFV, because I'm also tweeting with the SFV account on Twitter, and I think it's just amazing because it brings, we kind of a science which is kind of a joke. A lot of people are always like, yeah, fun with flags and so on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so everybody is like, yeah, fun with flags. And then when you speak and you say, okay, fun with flags, but what's your favorite one? And then everybody has an opinion.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because they all have like those kind of opinions, and sorry, they all have those kind of opinions, and it's always yeah, it's something nobody agrees on and everybody can agree on also, and yeah, it's really interesting. So when you bring out vexillology to the mass in a
Hmm.
way, because Twitter is, we had like some tweets that have been 500,000 times.
Yeah.
And people, we've been looking, and then on Google, you see that when we do the tweet on Google search, everybody is going to Google the vexillology term. It's quite interesting. We kind of, yeah, with what our organizers also on Twitter, like the cup, the Vexi Cup. A lot of people were decided to get interested in what was the noun, what was the stuff, and now little by little, when we have stuff and problematics about flags, it starts. It's slow, but it starts now
Hmm.
that journalists are actually calling us. Before they would not even call us.
Yeah. I mean, I've said it on here. I mean, or I'm paraphrasing probably myself now, but like any kind of passion about flags, I'm all for. It's good. It's a net good if you are getting that. I cried about a flag earlier this week. Um, More on that later. Like, I mean, yeah, anything that gets like people talking about it, gets people interested in it, gets people even, like you said, vehemently disagreeing about it sometimes. Like I said with Christoph last week, that's people talking. That's, wheels in motion. That's the only way that things get done, basically, I think, is by having those
Yeah.
differing opinions too. Having people that give
So
enough of a shit to care, to voice that caring, I guess, maybe
yeah,
better. But
yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's true. So
um,
to answer your question, it was like probably because I was quite active on Twitter and on internet, and I kind of mastered like
okay,
social networks. And we decided, like, yeah, he thought that it would be important and interesting to have me there, and because I had a lot of ideas, and I'm always full
yeah,
of lots of ideas.
yeah. Part of why the reason I ask is because I know a lot of our listeners are interested in, if they're not already part of a flag society or association, what have you. They're interested in getting in one, and or being in a leadership role. I think it's been really beneficial talking to you and Christoph and Eric in Utah, like, how to get into these things. Um, Not necessarily how to, move up in the world, but just like what you should do when you get in there is, in your case, it was how well you do social media, and they saw the value in that. Said, yeah, right this way,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah.
But
It was pretty much like a few people with their, like, it's, when I'm attending a meeting of SFV, I'm always amazed, like
yeah,
the knowledge some people have, like those, they know about the flag that was used in 1933 in the middle of the Sahara,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's like, but at the same time, it's like it's always what we do. It's okay. We are passionate about it. We talk about it. It's amazing because we get knowledge. Oh, my cat is interrupting me. We've got knowledge. We've got a lot of a lot of things. But what is also important is to bring this knowledge outside of our circles and to bring it to the general people and general public.
Yeah.
And because everybody can be interested in it, I think. And
Hmm.
that's also, yeah, that's what helps us to do it with social networks and not only, keeping everything in classroom in a way. It's like
Hmm. Yeah.
taking the kids out on a day trip and
Yeah, I
sharing
agree.
spreading the words.
Yeah, Christoph is in the Discord. Again, I keep bringing him up from last week's, but yeah, he's doing he's got like a stall, a booth set up today at like a children's fair thing in Prague that I think he's doing like a vexillology thing with. So cool. And yeah, to your point, like, I think there are a lot more vexillologists and vex heads, as I call them, in the world than are currently aware of it. There are vex heads that don't even know they're vex heads yet. And that's part of why I do this show, to try and bring it, make it like a big tent, bring in people that maybe haven't thought, that hard in their lives about flags, but have a passing interest, maybe more now. That's why you do what you do. That's why, I mean, you name it. Most of my guests, that's why we all do what we do. But it's so much fun and it's so satisfying seeing, I talk about it all the time, but seeing like these young people, like you said, you were at the time one of the youngest, and now you might even be on the oldest. I don't know, but like there's a lot of young people that have gotten into it. And I think your emphasis and your skill with social media is a huge credit to not just to you, but to the SFV as well, because I did want to get into those Vexy cups. Again, we're getting a little bit out of the order here, but the order is a
Yeah, sure.
suggestion. I would love to get
Yeah,
into
sure.
these. You've got one from 2018 and two from 2019. One is departmental
Yep.
and one is
Regional.
regional. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, walk us through like, all right. Most of my listeners know how tournaments work. We just got through like March Madness here in the US was last month and all that. But this is basically a tournament of flags. But how does it work? Like, how do you set it up? You personally, I guess, in this case.
It was a huge personal time to invest because
I
I
bet.
made each time graphs, like image with like title, what we were going on, what the flag, using the flag. I decided to use, the problem in France is we've got logo flags.
Yes.
We've got either sub, like seal on bed sheets, or it's actually coat of arms on bed sheets.
Hmm.
Top, we will call it cub, or logos. Logos comes from the, I don't know, I might be wrong, but 70s, and it hasn't been changed. The
Yeah.
problem I'm always saying is like logos change with majority, with elections. So when you have a new majority, you change the logo because you want to get rid of what the other did before.
Hmm.
Whereas when you have a coat of arms, it's kind of a patrimony thing, and you cannot change it because it's been there for years and years and years. So I decided to take the flags. It would be, what did I say? It's
Patrimonial.
like, yeah, patrimonial. It would be in your family for a long time.
Mm, gotcha.
It belongs to common knowledge, and it belongs to common culture in a
Hmm.
way. And so, that it's like if you have a flag where it's written France
Hmm.
on it, you have a
Yeah.
new majority, you change it, you have a new flag. Oh, I don't like this language. I don't like this font. I'm going to change it. If you've got a blue, white, and red flag, you pretty much, besides changing a little bit of the color, as we
Yeah.
said before, you don't really go and change things. So I decided to take only flags because we had a heraldist who was called Robert Louis, and he made a lot of coat of arms. And he drew a lot of coat of arms and a lot of institutions at the time. In 20th century, they decided to either base their logos or their flags on what he did.
Yeah.
And so you have a lot of regions where they have those those plain flag, like a normal flag, a graphic normal flag, and a
Mm.
lot of regions were only logo. And so I decided it was a political statement in a way.
Yeah.
I decided to use only normal flags, no logo flags. I didn't want to do an ad for anybody. It was a common um, object that would have been the flag
Yeah.
that everybody can relate to. And so I opposed each flag in 24 hours a voting
Hmm.
poll on Twitter. And we got massive press, massive reactions. We've got national press who've been talking to us. And it was funny because it's flags, so it's not really about how you like it. It's certainly, we had at one times the tiny little flag, the great flag of
Hmm.
the tiny little island of Saint-Pierre-et-Miquelon,
Yeah.
who was
Yeah.
opposed
It got like second or
to the
third.
flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, it became third. I think it becomes third, but it was the first year in 2018, and it was a quarterfinal or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And the problem was, like, it was opposed to the flag of Nice, county of Nice. Nice is a nice city on Côte d'Azur in southern France,
No pun intended.
and yeah, and they had this.
Sorry, the niece is nice thing. As an English
Yeah, the
speaker,
Nice
I'm
is nice.
obligated, I think,
Yeah,
to. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
the Nice is nice. I wouldn't have said nice, but yeah, the
Yeah.
Nice is nice. And then the local football team just jumped on it and called the 500,000 supporters on Twitter to vote for the flag of Nice. And
Yeah.
everybody in France decided to react and to vote for the small islands of Saint-Pierre-et-Miquelon, lost in the Saint Laurent
Yeah.
stream, like and estuary. And it was funny because at the end, the flag of Saint-Pierre-et-Miquelon lost by
Hmm.
very few votes.
Hmm.
We had to have prolongations, like to keep on again, because it was 50-50, so we couldn't make
Tiebreakers. Yeah.
and they lost because of time zone. We had we had like a longer time until 10 a.m., but it was
Tragic.
6 a.m. in the morning for them, so nobody was awake. And when I went there because for my job, and I looked for a flag of Saint-Pierre-et-Miquelon, I had the woman in the shop said, "You know what? We actually last month we came like fourth in a on a staff on the internet." And I was, yeah, that's me. I organized it.
What?
And it was like it had a huge impact on the islands.
Yeah.
And it was funny because they saw that a lot of people in France actually loved the flag, and it's very interesting because if you look at the book "Good Flag, Bad Flag" of Nava,
Yep, I've got it back here
Saint-Pierre-et-Miquelon
somewhere.
is considered as being a bad flag.
Yeah, it is,
And
because it's just a combination of other flags or whatever they say. Yeah.
Yeah, it's too much. You have too much things on it and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And at the same time, it's a loved flag in France. A lot of people like it because it's a flag from a tiny island. They love the fact that it has Navarre and Brittany and Normandy sounds on it.
Yeah.
And it looks like the French, expansion in Northern America, and it brings back, greatness of France and so on, and feelings and
I hadn't even thought of
patriotism and
that.
stuff like that. It's quite interesting. So graphically, it's not a nice flag for vexillology, but for common people, it's an amazing flag in France.
Yeah, I mean, good friends of the show, Flag Session. They've been on an episode as well. Dave, at least, is a huge fan of this flag. He's a Kiwi, lives in New Zealand, from New Zealand, loves the St. Pierre and Miquelon flag. And like you said, so you were in St. Pierre and Miquelon, which for listeners, basically it's Canada. It's not, but it's right off the coast of Canada.
It's France. It's France.
Yes.
It's France. I don't want to be
It is an integral part of France, just like French Guiana, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah, so you were quite a ways from home, and even out there they were talking about it. I mean, it makes sense. They they from what I understand, I've never been there, but they seem quite proud of that flag, and for good
Yeah,
reason, I
and
think.
they got a massive exposure. You know that they kind of forgotten over there.
Yeah, you
Nobody knows
cannot.
that.
Right.
A lot of people thinks that of French overseas is palm trees and French Polynesia and New Caledonia
Hmm.
and Martinique and Guadeloupe, and you have Saint Pierre et Miquelon where people are white and not colored people, skin colored people. So it makes also a difference because it's you know it's back to history and they don't have a relation to metropolitan, what they call metropolitan France,
Hmm.
as colonizers, but still, you know, it's they're proud, they're happy of their islands, they love the two tiny islands close to Newfoundland and Labrador in Canada,
Yep.
and you pay in euros, and you have French flag, and they vote for European elections, and when you there, you eat amazing croissant, so
Yeah.
it's weird.
France is so much more than
And
just the hexagon.
but what is interesting is like French overseas territory have a lot of flags.
Mm.
And again, we go back to a possession of a flag which has a link to the ensign. And the ensign is used on sea. And so because the overseas and most of the time they're close to sea or have a huge coastline or like Guyana, French Guyana, or are
Mm.
just islands, like pretty much every single French overseas territory,
Yeah.
they used to have their flags because their own flags because they used it as a coat of arms at the time, and Martinique had
I was just going to bring up Martinique. Yeah. No,
yeah,
go
they had
on.
strong discussions about it just recently, and
Hmm.
the vote was kind of yeah. So we have an internal WhatsApp group for the SFV. And I told them the first day, I told them, you'll see the flag that will win is the flag that is actually now. And when they had the colibri flag, I said, wait, you'll see. And then, yeah, we had the flag because I kind of, understood how politics is working
Hmm.
and how they were trying to do it and where they were going to do and they reach an agreement for independentists and people who are not not for independence of Martinique. They had to change it because Macron just arrived and the guy said, "Yeah, we have a blue flag with a white cross and white snakes on it, 4 white snakes, and it looks like it was a flag that was used on boats for bringing slaves from Africa
Yeah.
to those places.
Yeah.
We should change it." And Macron said, yeah, we should change it. But he didn't have any idea of what he was talking about. So they've been, yeah,
Sounds like a
I mean,
great
it was
idea.
like,
You
okay,
guys do it. You handle that.
exactly,
I'll sign off on it.
exactly, exactly. So they've been doing it, and they changed it after, and they chose the first one, which was called Ipseite flag, and the flag was actually turned down by jurisdiction and tribunal and a
Mhm.
court, and then they had to organize a new way to get a new flag. But yeah, French overseas territory, they have amazing flags. When you go there, you see them flying, which is quite important and interesting because in France, flags is you see a few, but not everywhere.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they love their flags. It's a true relationship to the institution of the flags in French Polynesia. You see the French Polynesian flag everywhere, in Saint Pierre et Miquelon everywhere. In Martinique, I saw it too. In Guadeloupe, I saw it too. It was not the flag you see. You have the icon on Twitter, or the emoji. It's not
Yeah.
this flag they use. They use a flag which is really looking like French Guyana in a way. I think it's green, red, green with a yellow star on the left,
And that's for where?
and from Guadeloupe,
Guadeloupe.
it's
Okay.
the independentist flag of Guadeloupe. So, but when I was in Guadeloupe in December, I only saw this flag. I never saw the blue and the dark and the black flag with the yellow sun. I've never
The
seen
one
that.
that, the one that the emoji will tell you is the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So you've done all right. So you've had the two, or yeah, the one in 2018, and then the departmental and regional ones in 2019. Was there something that happened in 2020 that? No, I'm just kidding. Do you have any plans to do another one of these though, or any or
Yes, yes,
similar,
yes.
whether it's departmental, regional? I guess you
Yeah.
could do a
We
yeah.
my colleague on Instagram, because I'm not taking care of his Instagram, but my
Uh-huh.
colleague on Instagram is same handle at Drapeau with a X SFV, is organizing every next Tuesday a new contest of regional flag in France. He just told me that yesterday, so big news. You you
Next
you know that
Tuesday,
actually.
is that going
Yeah,
to
next
be the
Tuesday we
18th?
will vote on Instagram. In the story is going to organize it in the story, and you're going to be able to vote during the story. We'll post for the flag, so he will do that. I would like to do a new one, but it takes a lot of time because you have to be very consequent and you have to post every day over 1 month and a half or 2 months.
Yeah, yeah,
A poll
dude.
and make the stuff. Yeah, it's it's on
It's so
free
dope.
time. So yeah.
Is
But what was really interesting was like the institutions, the departments, they
yeah.
kind of started to follow me and they started to say, yeah, vote for our flags and so on.
Uh-huh.
And for the department flags, the one that won was a department in Morbihan. I think it was a department in Morbihan in Brittany.
Yeah, Finistère.
And yeah, Finistère,
Yeah,
Finistère. You're right.
that's the
Finistère was
2019.
opposed to
Bachin,
high rain.
Ocha, yeah.
Yeah,
Upper
high
Rhine.
rain,
Yeah.
Upper Rhine,
Mhm.
and the two presidents of the council,
Ah,
department council, was two women. They started to exchange together on internet under the poll, like, good luck to you, my dear colleague. And they were not at all from the same political sides. One was on the right, the other one was right on the left.
yeah.
And they started to exchange, and the handles of the department started to exchange too. And everybody called the friends from lower Rhine and the regions and to vote for us. And they were calling their friends from Brittany to vote for them. And
Yeah.
it's been massive. And they finally Finistère won. It's not the flag they use. They use a logo flag. They use the coat of arms with Finistère on it. But I think it's quite interesting that we made them realize that actually a flag they're not using
Yeah.
actually won, and the flag that won is a proper flag. It's not a soap or a coat of arms on flag. And a little things I forgot to tell you. I have a list of municipal flags in France,
Hmm.
and I ask people to, when they see a municipal flag in France, to take a picture and to send it to me,
Yes.
and I keep recording it.
Yeah.
And when we organized the first cup, Nice won the first Vexi Cup, and they had a council meeting before the win and a council meeting after the win. And you can see it on the internet. And after the win, the flag in the council is the flag that won, and not the flag of the city they had before, which was just a sub.
Oh man, that's
So
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah. So
that's really cool.
that must be
That
very.
somebody saw it, like they had
Yeah.
so many people in Nice that were talking about it, and they were like, "Oh my god, our flag is going. The flag of the region is going to win." And they were like, "Okay, but that's not the city flag." And the
And
city
it's
flag
like,
is just the coat of arms,
yeah.
and they change it, and they use the former county of Nice, which is a former flag, a historical flag, and they put it in the council. So it was really cool.
Yeah, it's
really,
like
really cool.
it's like those results speak for themselves, and if they are listening to those, then they're going to benefit. Like, yeah, the same thing you said with like Finistère is they use like a logo flag, which the whole logo stop thing. We should touch on briefly in a minute, but like, I mean, one thing several great things that come from this. One, like the heads of the departments like talking to each other and kind of like razzing each other on Twitter. I love stuff like that. We don't have it so much here in the States unless it's like a sports team thing. Usually, like the Super Bowl, like the Chiefs and the Eagles, like the respective mayors will make a bet and send each other. But for flags,
I mean,
to see that on a
yeah.
flag level is awesome.
Let me interrupt you like 2 seconds.
Sure.
We do have it for sports.
Oh, I'm sure.
We do. Yeah, they do it for sports.
Yeah.
But what was just amazing, they did it for flags.
That's what I mean.
It was just amazing.
Because sports makes sense. Yeah, the sports, you probably have similar stories in most countries around the world that have sports. But like, yeah, to do it for flags and have them razzing each other over that. Like, I've taken polls on. I've never voted in one of these. I don't think I was maybe paying attention when you were doing these a few years ago. But I have voted in like the prettiest train station in France. They do a poll about that like every year. And Metz, where I used to live, pretty consistently wins it because objectively it is the prettiest. But even things like that, like an argument about like whose train station is prettier, first off, for our American listeners and our American ears, what a world. A better world is possible where we have these beautiful train stations and we can travel via train to almost anywhere in the US. Anyway, that's a dream for a later day. But France has that and it's great. I don't know. To see it for flags, train stations, lesser things like that, like just to get conversations going. I didn't know what half those train stations looked like. I didn't know half these flags, and I guarantee you a bunch of these people didn't. And then, secondly, like even on top of that, to have Finistère win and have it be this flag that wins should get some cogs turning, some wheels moving. Like, okay, well, this one was good enough to win. Our other one wasn't even worth putting on here. Maybe we take a re-look-see at that. And with that, I kind of wanted to roll into your Logo Stop campaign and just we're running out of time as far as like I want to hit a bunch more stuff, but like could you briefly kind of tell us what the Logo Stop is? I guess you kind of gave the overview for why
it's because in France they always use logos. So most of the time I'm doing a Logo Stop hashtag on internet. And we've been, when I see flags, most of the time when people send me stuff, I go on Google Maps and then I try to go in front of the town hall and I look on the picture if they've got a municipal flag. Most of the time they've got a logo or they've got something. So I draw proposals. I post the proposals on internet. I tag the mayor, the MP, the representative, the senator, whatsoever.
Whoever had like an ad, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. I really, and then I just, I just draw a proposal and I just tell them, this is not a flag. I mean, this is not your flag. It's a proposal to show how a proper flag is done and how you could actually change from a logo to something that belongs to everyone. The problem with the logo is a trademark, and you cannot use a trademark personally. A flag usually has no trademark, so you can use it everywhere. And that's how I convinced the city of Château-Thierry, where they've been the first city in France in N that actually we accompanied them from A to Z, from changing the flags, and they actually changed. They went from a logo flag to a new flag, and I told them you can have the same flag for sport events, for cultural events, for political events. You've got one flag. People buy it, and then they put it in the garden, and they belong to the community. Yeah. They belong to a place where they gather together. And the mayor, who was a friend from my former political party, he was like, yeah, just come, okay, if you want, I told him, okay, you're a mayor, you're a new mayor, you're a young mayor. I just wanted to know, do you think I could come and talk about flags to you? Yeah. And he was like, yeah, come. And he said, I come like 20 minutes and then I have to go to an inauguration or something like that for a new swimming pool or something like that. And then he stayed like for 1 hour because he told me, I thought, you would like talk blah, blah, blah. But actually it was very, very, very interesting. And they were not happy with a new regional way of understanding because they produce champagne and they are not in Champagne, Ardennes. They are in the new region of northern France. They would have loved to be with Champagne, which is the new region of Grand Est, Great East.
Yeah,
And
don't get
so
me started. I
I
got
told
thoughts on
him,
that. As
yeah,
as
and
a
I told him, I
Lorraine,
said,
yeah,
a flag is a way of expressing your a political idea. So I told them they could maybe take the former Champagne flag and add things of their own coat of arms to still show on the flags they were belonging to this area of producer of Champagne. And now they have it, and they have it everywhere, and they're very proud of it. And I think it's one of the greatest achievement I did, because I mean,
yeah,
I, I, I presented also, I participated, I sent flags and IDs. My aim was not to have my flags chosen. My aim was to give them
yeah,
hints and say what they should do. And the final flag is very close to what I said and what I proposed.
yeah.
It's not mine. It's not my work, but I'm very happy I've been able to contribute for them to have this kind of new graphic design. So,
Absolutely.
and to change from a logo to a normal flag.
Yeah, and I think that's like so important. I was hoping you would touch on that too, because like you said, the design they chose draws elements from yours, adds a few things that, like you said, like the champagne, like the bar, whatever it's called, that goes through it. It kind of combines a lot of different things, and it's, as you also said, it's close to yours. You can tell it draws from it, but it's not your exact design. And I think this entire story is going to be familiar to folks in Utah here in the U.S., or folks that have listened to any of the episodes I've had with Eric Neistel or Michael Green, because Michael basically got the ball rolling on a lot of those Utah like redesigns. And he said he's got a TEDx talk that I've linked to various places, and it's on his Flags for Good stuff. But he says, like, he unveils his at the very end of the talk. It's very similar to what you see here behind me for the viewers in this little flag, but importantly, it's not the exact same. He did what you did, which was get the conversation started, get the ball rolling, make a really striking, I guess, suggestion, like visually striking suggestion for how things could be, that even if it doesn't end up being your exact design, his exact design, it gets the cogs turning. And honestly, in both cases, it did end up being, this one's very close to his design, to be totally honest. And the one, I read your paper here, the most of it. I got down a little past Chateau Thierry. But yeah, I mean, this is same story, different place, basically. It's so important to get the ball rolling, but then also, like, it's almost, this is maybe a weird thing to say, but it's almost important that you don't win, I think. And I think my reasoning for saying that is that someone else gets the thrill that you already get from designing flags, from doing all this Vex stuff in the first place. Someone else is now in. Someone else has designed a freaking flag for a city. And if nothing else, like, they're in now. And that's awesome.
Yeah, and they had the Fête de la Saint-Jean because the home city of Jean de La Fontaine, and who write poetry and story about human behaviors under animals, characters, and for the Fête de la Saint-Jean, they've been parading with this flag everywhere in the city and in the demos, and they were very, very happy about it, and they were very proud, and I hope they're going to keep on being proud about it, because it's not a logo. People can use it. You can make one and put it in your garden. Nobody's going to complain about the facts. I think, and as you said, it's not winning. It's we with the SFV, we are just there to tell them. We never tell them what they have to choose, but we tell them what, in a vexillological way, is correct and what is incorrect. And so we have had a few cities who came to us and say, okay, what do you think? They had an expert. They really did it like a very well staffed. They make the school involved with the program, sporting societies. We have a lot of societies that holds flags during Second World War and First World War celebrations in France, or what we call porte-drapeau. And everybody was really happy, and they had a historical committee who was there also to look at it. And yeah, I think it was good because when you look at the
Yeah.
designs, the kids are taking part of it, and I think it's a great way of democratizing them to put the
Yeah.
stuff into democracy in a way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, democratizing was right. I wasn't going to flag you on that one. Yeah, no, like it's awesome. And even aside from like the fact that all this happened and this, you did all this in the first place, I love that you included it in the booklet because it's really interesting to see. I mean, not only you go over like the, so Chateau Thierry, for the few that I can't imagine there's many that don't know, but Chateau means castle. So this is a little bit of a canting thing. There's a castle on this new flag, and you go over like different depictions. Like there's what you find on Wikipedia, what you find on Armorial de France, like what you find on an actual building in the city that's like a stone relief thing.
Yeah.
And these are all like slightly, they're all variations on a theme. So what you do is you kind of ignore the variations and you take the theme and you kind of take that and put it with some other important symbols. Like you said, in this case, the bend of like the Champagne region, bend in like Vex terms. And you just combine like, I don't know, like I love that you included that in the paper or in the booklet. And I love that you included, as you were just saying, like the other proposals. Like there's so many kids drawings on here that like vary in like I'm not gonna criticize them for quality or whatever because you can tell what they're going for, and that's the important part. And it's so fascinating how they all are different but related. Which if you look at good flag, bad flag, be different or be related. I don't know. Like this was I was super excited to read this part. I was excited to have you on in general, and then I read all this and I was like, holy whoa, let me. Like, all right, okay, I see what these kids did. Some of these are gorgeous. Some I don't quite get, but some of them even.
It's like when New Zealand decided to choose a new flag, which is like I've got the one that I lost.
Yep.
It's you had this kiwi flag where you had this kiwi with like
the
laser
lasers.
eyes. And it's amazing. I think it's funny. I don't know if it's a joke or. If it's a joke, it's cool, and if it's not a joke, it's cool too. I think, and especially if it's a kid who draw it, I think it's just great. Kids have like this imagination, and they do. They usually they go in some places we as adults we would not even go.
Right,
graphic. I think is
thought to go even. Yeah,
thought to go, and I think graphism is also a way to sometimes, what makes a good graphic. It's to try to find something new, to find something harmonious. I don't know. And sometimes when you're adults, you don't think of things, and when you're kids, you think of simple things, which actually works better.
Yeah. It's so funny too, because like there's like a weird dichotomy. I mean, some kids can draw. I couldn't as a kid and can't as an adult, really. But like, it's so funny because even if like the drawing is not, professional quality, you can ignore that because it's a kid. But you get the idea, and you're like, ooh, the idea behind this, I want everything to do with. This is amazing. Let's extrapolate it out, make it look a little more professional. But the spirit behind it is what we're trying to capture, and in a lot of cases, they've done that perfectly. I love to see that. I mean, I sound like a broken record probably, but I just love seeing young people involved.
and you also make them kind of prepared to be involved with the cité, what we say.
Oh yeah, civic engagement for sure.
With civism and civic institutions and cities. Civism, civic institution and the way of voting and being, involved in political, not only political, but in the affairs of the city, in politics decisions, and just being able to take a night bus, for example, or just to be able to go in a new swimming pool because the city is building a new one, and so on. And you make flags is always an engagement for community. So
yeah, absolutely. There were a few other things I wanted to go over. That was super illuminating. I'm glad we got to that one. I did want to, while we're on the topic of designing, before we get to like kind of the last thing I want to get to, So this is fun. You did a Swiss flags. Are they canton or municipality flags? As Game of Thrones flags.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, or whenever. But I stumbled
Yeah,
upon
it
that,
was.
and then you
No,
showed me.
I think it was for the prequel. For the prequel, it was for House of the Dragon,
Oh, for
and
House.
I think the day, yeah, for the day before House of Dragon, the first episode of House of Dragons was actually broadcasted. I decided to. I loved. I never watched Game of Thrones for I don't know for five. I've watched the entire show
Yeah.
in 1 week.
Damn.
During So when you see a small girl who is like going away after 8 years, I think they had 8 seasons, something like that,
Something
and
like that.
she's a grown-up girl and blah blah blah. People have been with her for 8 years. I've been with her for 7 days only.
Yeah,
But
true. Yeah.
everybody told me you have to look at it because you've got flags everywhere, you've got coat of arms everywhere. It's amazing.
Dude,
So I
yeah.
was like, okay, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna. It's not too much the thing I kind of like to watch, but I'm gonna. And then I was like completely
And then you're hooked.
sucked in, and
Yeah.
yeah, and I love the flags, and the flags was like, oh my gosh, this reminds me so much of Swiss flags. And then I decided to have a look, and it took me a bit of time because for Game of Thrones, you have islands, and so you've got like krakens and stuff like that on flags. Of
Yeah.
course, in Switzerland, you don't have krakens, so you take corns and like not corns, like stuff they have on the head
Uh,
for cattle.
yeah. Yeah.
That looks a bit like a kraken, but then I decided to do it, and then I realized a lot of flags in Game of Thrones are actually pretty much very, very, very close
Yep.
to some Swiss flags. Of course, a red lion on a yellow lion on a red field. You will find it pretty much
Sure.
everywhere, all
That
over
one's
Europe.
fairly common. The Lannister one, yeah, and the equivalents, yeah. Yeah, you
But
had
then,
to.
I thought it was funny. So I put, house of, and I put house of the city, and then I
Mm,
put the kingdom of, and the kingdom name was the canton, the state. We have 26 states that are in a confederation, like
hmm
the 50 states in America, and then it was funny. Like it had kind of an echo on the internet also, and it kind of popular. Like people again. You take something which is very popular, like a show like Game of Thrones, and you mix it with flags. Of course,
Yeah.
it makes like
I mean, this
people
is
like it.
kind of the thing we've been talking about all episode, but yeah, it's an accessibility thing, right? It's like I guarantee there were people that were watching Game of Thrones that were paying like a little more attention to the banners than they thought they would, and maybe that awakened something in them. I know I was already into flags, but when I started watching Game of Thrones, I'll be like, wait, pause that on that. So that's Stannis's Baratheon banner, not Renly's, because it's got the flames and and it goes back to I like heraldry. Like Christoph would love this stuff too, but it's so fascinating. I find myself like watching like Game of Thrones intro with like eagle eyes, seeing like, all right, what little sigil is gonna pop up where and who, all this stuff. I have more fun like watching like the bannermen coming into the like, maybe not more fun because it's always fun when a dragon shows up. But watching the Tully bannermen or whatever, like carrying this weird fish thing, watching that, like it goes back to the same thing that we've been talking about is like people are into this. A lot of them just don't know it yet. And stuff like you doing this opens that door for them. And I mean, I don't mean to toot your horn all day, every day, but this is great. Like everything you've done for this is amazing. And I will link to this in the show notes.
Yeah, what was really interesting also because I listened to also a prior podcast where somebody was talking about dragons and mostly in Bhutan flags or Wales flags.
Uh-huh.
And it's funny because we've got dragons also, dragon stories in Switzerland. And you see flags with dragons with like, stuff trying to kill the dragons. Not, St. George killing the dragon. It's
Yeah.
like, it's a very badass flag if you look at it. So black field with a yellow dragons being like killed on it. It's kind of and it tells a lot of story about where it is, the legions you had over there,
Yeah.
and what you're talking about, and coat of arms and so on.
Yeah. No,
I mean, you.
yeah. I was just gonna say it's very cool. I'm on repeat. What were you gonna say?
No, I was just like, if you look at Game of Thrones, you've got like a dragon with three heads,
Yep.
and it's a yellow dragon on a black field, but you know that actually in Switzerland, people really had on their coat of arms a dragon who was killed, because most of the time, which is really interesting in Switzerland, the coat of arms have been, families. You don't need to be a noble. You don't need to be in a high class to have a coat of arms in Switzerland.
Right.
It's every single family can have one. And so when Swiss flags, municipal flags, they never always existed. They started by the beginning of the former century, in the 20th century. And most of the time, municipalities were like, okay, so they're asking us to have a flag. How are we going to do it? And most of the time, they were looking at some guy who were very important in the region, in the village.
Yeah.
They were taking his coat of arms and changing slightly a bit the colors. And okay, we're not taking the family coat of arms, but we're taking, his family coat of arms and changing the colors. And that's going to be the colors, coat of arms, excuse me, and flags of the village. And that's really interesting because it also links to, again, what we've been talking about last time about the CVS and coat of arms and flags, and they're intimately related to each other, and especially in Switzerland, where every single flag is a coat of arms put on a banner.
Yeah,
pretty much. I think there's only one exception, and it's interesting because people, like, you have shops that sells Swiss flags, and they just take the coat of arms and they sell it as a flag. But there's a city in Le Locle. There's a city called Le Locle in northern Switzerland, close to its bordering French border. And Le Locle has a very different flag. They have a coat of arms and they have a very different flag, which is a flamed flag with a white cross in the middle, with a lot of colors. And it's written in the city city
charter or whatever.
Whatever. And so it's quite interesting, but it also shows that people who sell flags most of the time don't sell the correct flag. They just take, coat of arms and then, or they go on Wikipedia and then they sell the flag as being the flag of the place.
Yeah. I was going to say they sell the one that sells probably in most cases, but we've got to kind of get to wrapping up. There was one more important thing that I wanted to ask you, especially not only because I mentioned it up top in the intro, but because I am curious and I don't know the exact ins and outs of this either. But so you wrote that the difference between so there's the flag of Europe is what we all think of as the EU flag in quotes. The blue one with the, 12 stars? Yeah, 12 yellow stars in a circle. That's the flag of Europe. And as I mentioned in the intro, you got the EU to officially apologize to Switzerland, or was it the other way around?
Yeah. That's exactly what happened. That was very funny.
Briefly I just want to know the story, basically.
Switzerland is not a member of the European Union.
Right.
And the problem is when Switzerland is going to Brussels to speak with the European Commission, diplomatically, they put the flag of the invited country in front of the European Commission. So you have got at the time you had 28 European flags you've got 28 poles for the 28 member countries. And the first pole is for the invited country. And it was an official day. It was an official meeting between Switzerland and European Union. And so they put a Swiss flag, which was rectangular and not squared. And I saw it, and I said on internet, I tweeted, and I said, well, can somebody say the European Union that the flag of Switzerland is squared and not a civilian sign because we're on Earth and it should be a squared one? And I was like a bit picky and I said maybe it could show them a small interest in the guests they have at home. And so, yeah, and so I had
snarky. I like
a
it.
famous, yeah, I had the famous Swiss French language presentator of the evening news who actually saw it and on internet, and he decided to make a small intro, like a small 2 minutes in the news about it. And the correspondent, the Swiss TV correspondent in Brussels, she wrote to me on Twitter and she said, I'm asking the European Union why they made this diplomatic mistake.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, no, now it's taking like huge proportions.
Yeah.
And finally, the European Union apologized officially to Switzerland because she asked it because they recognized they didn't hoist the proper national flag. And what is really interesting, I would like to finish maybe on it. It's like, like my underrated flag is the European flag. The European flag, how you said, it's like the blue field with the 12 yellow stars. And what is really interesting is that this flag has been made by the Council of Europe, and the Council of Europe has 46 member states. The last one who has been expelled was Russia, for the reasons we know. And Belarus has never been there because they still have death penalty. They still had death penalty at the time. And you need to get rid of death penalty to, adhere to this Council of Europe. Council of Europe has been put together just right after the Second World War to pacify Europe. And they've been the one who actually invented this flag. And they are the one who owns the flag. And nobody knows it. And everybody thinks that actually European Union has a flag. You go on Wikipedia, you see European Union flag. And European Union flag has no flag. You know why? Because actually the British didn't want the name flag, because if the European Union would have flag, the European Union flag would be superior to their national flag. So the European Union is always referring to an emblem, and the emblem can be very vague. It can be a logo, it can be a coat of arms, it can be a flag. And actually, if you go on European emblems on the website of the European Union, you will see that they have a European flag in black and white, which is completely against any vexillological way of understanding flags. You don't put flags in black and white. And all the rest are logos. So actually, in fact, European Union has only a logo that prints on a rectangular piece of tissue, and it looks like a flag, but it's not the flag of European Union. And the problem is that in France, for example, they had like Scholz and from Germany, Macron from France, and they had Zelensky from Ukraine, and they had a meeting together in Paris. And so you could see the German flag with the European flag, the French flag with the European flag, and the Ukrainian flag. And that's a mistake, because Ukraine is member of the Council of Europe. And so they have the same right to use this flag for them. And the problem is European countries have decided kind of stealing this flag just for them, when it actually belongs to everyone in Europe and every single 46 member states. And to be clear, actually, Turkey is hosting this flag way much more before than almost 20 other members of the European Union, because Turkey is member of the Council of Europe since the beginning. And they never wanted to have a Christian relationship, because, people say that the flag of Europe is a Mary,
like a halo,
Mary crown,
or like
the crown of Mary. And Turkey always said, no, we don't want anything because we're Muslim, so we don't want Christian links. So actually, the flag of Europe is the 12 stars are always for the 12 months of the year, the 12 signs, astrological signs, the 12 hours of the day, of the half day, and it's been symbol that's been used, in a way of understanding Europe. And what I like is, when Brexit happened, a lot of people just draw, the flag with a star taken away.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, you don't understand what's a flag and what is this
Right.
flag. This flag has if it would be a star per country, it would have 27 or 28 stars, such as the American flags that will be modified if, I don't know, Puerto Rico, or maybe one
DC
day
yeah.
Washington, D.C. becomes, a state and so on. And so it's quite interesting because in Europe, everybody thinks it's the European flag, and the European Union flag,
right? Yeah.
And I'm always fighting and saying it's not the European Union flag; it's the flag of Europe.
Yeah, I won't lie. I actually did not know that until I, was getting ready for this episode and read a few of your notes and things. And I made an Instagram post on the show's Instagram, I think like a few days ago. I'm posting some old pictures of like last year when I was in Paris and Berlin and a few other places. And I'm glad that I read your notes before I posted that, because I actually posted it on Instagram as the European flag. If I had not read your notes, I probably would have just said, this is the EU flag above the Bundestag and all this other stuff. And I would have either gotten mocked or, I would have learned somehow, I guess. I'd rather learn this way though. So
there's a lot we have within this SFV, we have this debate about whether we should say it's the European flag or the flag of European Union.
Yeah.
The European Union is using it, so it's in de facto European Union flag. But America is using the Swiss flag for the Red Cross. For when you have an emergency in America, in some places, you have a red flag with a white cross. And that means emergency. And it's the Swiss flag. And they're not using the Red Cross flag because the Red Cross is kind of a protected.
Inverted.
So,
right?
Yeah. Inverted, exactly. So they're using the Swiss flag. And I always say, well, no, it's the Swiss flag. It's not the American Red Cross flag or the emergency flag or whatever. It's the Swiss flag they use for some other purpose.
Maybe it's a very Swiss emergency. Maybe somebody needs to get this man some hot chocolate stat, or maybe a cuckoo clock fell on this dude, and we got to have this flag so people know what's up. I don't know. I'm just making shit up now. No, that's awesome. So that was your underrated, right? Okay. And I just realized when you said underrated that it went over my head to even do the over and underrated. I was so excited to get into the bulk of the episode with you. So I honestly don't know if we have time to get into the other one right now, but I'll do this. Will you come back at some point?
Yes, sure.
Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
Pleasure.
All right. You guys heard it. Nasha is going to come back at some point. He's going to share with us at least one overrated flag. We may just throw two in since he didn't get to do this round. I do feel bad about that, but we are out of time. Doesn't matter. Nasha will be back, and we will conquer that then. So let's go ahead and wind down. Where can people, I guess I kind of mentioned, but where can people find you, follow you, and, interact with you on social media?
Okay, they can go. So with the handle of the Société Française de Vexillologie, they can go on Drapeau in French. You'll see. Maybe you can put it in.
I'll have it in the show notes, and yeah.
Awesome. Drapeau SFV, and we have the same handle for Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And for my personal account about flags, you'll see it's pretty much about Swiss flags and French flags. It's Vexillologie in French. So the word Vexillologie in French.
Yeah, same way as we would spell in English, but with an IE at the end.
Exactly. And I would like to take advantage of the position I have just right now.
Sure.
Because for a very small thing, we all around the world, we all love flags around the world. Your podcast is an amazing thing because it brings, people from the CVS, from other parts of the world that I would never have exchanged or understand who they were or because of course on Discord you have, some nickname and you don't really understand who the people are and so on. And what is really important, I think, when you look at how vexillology societies are working, most of them do not have a pretty well updated website. We are going to change our website too, also for France, because we realize we have a few problems on this website. We want something more dynamic and so on. But not only the website, when you look on the FIAV and you go on the sister society, most of them, they just have a phone.
Yeah.
Just have a phone and or a fax number,
Yeah.
or an email where you write, and when you write, you have your mail that comes back in return. So I would engage everybody who's listening to the show to go on Twitter, because on Twitter and Facebook, to make accounts and to interact on Twitter also with accounts, because that's the more we interact between us together. We're not doing it in private, we're doing it in public, and it will interest a lot of people who will one day, find a tweet or something like that, and will actually maybe bring even more members in our societies, because we know a lot of members in our societies, I think, at least in France. And you've got like the German Vexillological Society. They have a website. They have nothing on internet. You cannot interact with them on internet.
You hear that, German? Get on that.
It's not like to throw anything to anyone. It's just.
I'll do it.
I think we I think we really will gain visibility with being active on social networks.
Yep.
And that means creating handles and accounts on those and interacting together.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said like a few times during this, it's not even that we need to create more Vex heads, it's just that we need to find the Vex heads that don't even know they are yet and interact with them and get them out there. But anyway, let's see, my social media, you guys probably know it. It is at @flagged4 content on most things that aren't YouTube. On YouTube, it is youtube.com/flagged4content, all spelled out. You can interact with Nasha, all the places that he mentioned, and I feel like I am forgetting something. Because I have to close the show, but I didn't write anything for that. Do you have anything that might help?
I don't know. I would tell you a sentence, maybe. Something like, I don't know, hoist high your true colors.
Hoist high your true colors. There we go, folks. You heard it here first. Thank you so much, Nasha. This was amazing.
Thank you for you.
As we mentioned, you'll be back. I suspect a lot of our guests will. We need to have just like a super guest thing at some point. But anyway, I think that's it. And this show has been Flagged for Content. Thanks for listening, y'all. Flagged for Content is a Flags for Good podcast. Go to flagsforgood.com for more info.